Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking the incredible reality, the sheer strategic brilliance, and the ultimate tragic irony behind one of the Civil War's most fascinating figures, Confederate General Thomas J. Jackson. We're going to dive right in and separate the man from the myth. 646. That's a massive number, right? Well, it's the exact number of miles Jackson's infantry, famously nicknamed his foot cavalry, marched in just 48 days. Moving insanely fast on interior lines, they systematically engaged and defeated 3 separate Union armies in the spring of 1862. It's literally a logistical masterpiece that military academies still study today.
So here's our agenda for today. First, becoming Stonewall. Then, the genius of the Valley. Next up, the Great Partnership. And finally, the tragedy at Chancellorsville.
All right, part 1, becoming Stonewall. Let's take a look at the man before the myth. Before the war, Jackson wasn't exactly seen as this celebrated military genius. Actually, he was Major Jackson, a super strict natural philosophy, basically physics, and artillery tactics instructor at the Virginia Military Institute. He was intensely demanding, deeply religious, and honestly, his students secretly called him Tom Fool or Old Jack. So respected? Sure. A superstar? Not quite. But wow, did that reputation change in July 1861? During the First Battle of Manassas, or Bull Run, Confederate lines were essentially crumbling under Union pressure. But Jackson's brigade, they held their ground, completely resolute. An observing officer reportedly pointed at him and shouted that Jackson was standing like a stone wall. And just like that, from a single moment of absolute battlefield discipline, his immovable nickname was born. Moving right along to part 2, Genius of the Valley, covering the 1862 campaign. Take a look at these numbers. During the 1862 Shenandoah Valley campaign, Jackson was facing seemingly impossible odds. He commanded a pretty small force of about 17,000 troops, going up against 3 separate Union armies, totaling a massive 52,000 men. By all conventional military logic, he should have been completely crushed. But here's the thing. Jackson didn't just fight harder to overcome those odds. He fought smarter. He brought in a local amateur cartographer named Jedediah Hotchkiss and had him comprehensively map out the entire 140-mile-long valley. Hotchkiss's meticulous notes on terrain, elevations, and hidden roads gave Jackson a decisive, overwhelming geographic advantage over Union generals who were, essentially fighting blind. And the results were absolutely wild. Using that map and pushing his men through those grueling 646 miles, Jackson managed to achieve local numerical superiority in specific battles. He won 5 significant victories, defeated all 3 Union armies in the region, and got into Washington's head so much that President Lincoln actually held back over 40,000 Union troops from attacking Richmond. It was a total masterclass in strategic distraction. Okay, on to part 3, the great partnership between Robert E. Lee and Jackson. For decades, history books really leaned into this one specific narrative, that Robert E. Lee was the grand, fatherly strategist, and Jackson was just the blunt, tactical instrument blindly carrying out orders. But recent historical analysis, it completely debunks that. They weren't just brain and brawn. They actually shared a really deep, highly collaborative strategic vision. As Civil War historian Christian B. Keller points out, Jackson was unequivocally engaged with the overall strategic character of the war. He wasn't just a yes man. He'd suggest, advise, and offer his own highly developed opinions to Lee. Because they both saw the big picture, this command team became incredibly dangerous to the North. Which brings us to our final section, part 4, Tragedy at Chancellorsville, and a Fatal Mistake. Fast forward to May 1863, at the Battle of Chancellorsville. Jackson had literally just pulled off one of the most brilliant flanking maneuvers of the entire war. He wanted to keep pressing his advantage, so he rode out in front of his own lines in the pitch dark to scout Union positions. And then, the ultimate cruel irony. The man who had effortlessly evaded massive Union armies was mistaken for Union cavalry by his own North Carolina troops, who opened fire. The medical reality was really grim. Hit in the hand, his left arm was completely shattered by the friendly fire, and it had to be quickly amputated to save his life. At first, it looked like he was going to survive the horrific ordeal, but while he was recovering, a deadly pneumonia set in. 4 days later, Jackson's body simply gave out. His death sent absolute shockwaves through the Confederacy. But what's super interesting is that even his famous last words are a subject of historical debate today.
If you visit the Chancellorsville battlefield, you'll see this large obelisk monument with his final delirious words etched right into the stone.
Now, popular culture almost always remembers him saying, "Let us cross over the river and rest under the shade of the trees." But the earliest authorized biographies and the physical monument itself actually record his final words as, "Let us pass over the river." It's a tiny linguistic difference, sure, but it perfectly illustrates how quickly a man's life and his death transforms into an unshakable legend.
And this ultimate tragedy leaves us with one of history's absolute greatest what-ifs. Jackson was only 39 years old. Think about it. How might the entire course of the American Civil War have shifted if Lee hadn't lost his greatest tactical partner to a mistaken bullet in the dark? It's a massive question historians debate to this very day. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the history you think you know, and I'll catch you next time.